Do you want to know what's going round? See what's the talk of the town on Real Talk on the radio today.
And welcome to Real Talk live streaming right here in Northport, Florida with Mr. Mayor Phil Stokes of City Council of Northport. How you doing there, Phil?
I'm good, John. Yourself?
I'm doing real good. We actually have a lot happening in the city of Northport, don't we?
That we do. That we do.
So
Seems
give us
like it never ends.
well, you know, there's a lot of action, but give us the mayor's vision of what's going on in the city.
Well, you know, we're starting up we're in the early stages of our budget process. We've had one workshop. We've got more to come. You know, we're looking to tighten the belts as much as we can this year. It's going to be a leaner year, we know, and you know, we'll find a way to balance our budget without raising the millage rate, and you know, we'll go through the process. It'll be a little different than the past couple of years because, you know, while growth still continues and revenues hopefully will go up a little bit, we're not going to see, we don't think, the kinds of appreciation in property values and you know, and other revenues. I mean, we do have some just regular city growth, but you know, costs keep going up. That's the problem. Inflation's not as flat as we'd like it to be, and you know, costs keep going up, wages keep going up. We've got union agreements and benefit costs that, you know, we're going to have to wrestle with in order to keep the budget balanced. But we'll get there. We'll get there. It's a process, and then we're coming down the home stretch on a referendum.
Yep.
You know, that'll be one way or the other. That will set the stage for how we proceed for the rest of the year with these projects and how we go about getting them paid for. But you know, we're optimistic. I mean, it's very hard. You can't really read. You know, you can't read the tea leaves on the referendums because those that are vocal, you know, are vocal, and most of the vocal voices are, you know, like, you know, they're you know, they're not supportive. You can't deny that if you read social media. But you know, we don't know how many people will turn out for this vote. There's a real grassroots effort to educate people and make them aware of the election and the importance of these referendums. And we'll see if we get a big enough turnout from the rest of the community. You know, they could do anything from, you know, pass overwhelmingly to fail. Who the heck knows?
Absolutely, and you know, the voting turnout is very important. I've been talking about this for 8 to 10 years now, and it's important to get your vote out because your voice needs to be heard, but you also need to understand why. And you talk a little bit about the grassroots effort, and you're kind of part of that with these town hall meetings and things that you're doing, a little different than what people have done in the past. As far as commissioning goes and mayor status goes, I don't know the last time we've kind of had these round robin town hall meetings as far as the mayor position goes. I know we did it at, you know, with Northport Forward, kind of started that kind of catapulted that idea out into the community, but you kind of taken this to another level, haven't you, as far as the mayor?
Well, you know, a little bit. I don't know that it's not necessarily because I'm the mayor. The reality is the mayor has no more authority, doesn't speak with any larger voice, in my opinion. Any commissioner can speak out and can advocate. You know, we're allowed to advocate, commissioners are, unlike the city that has to educate but not advocate. And, you know, my belief is that, you know, with all the decisions we make, being able to communicate with everybody is important. And, you know, certainly this referendum has given good cause to want to communicate to a larger extent with the community. And, you know, whether it's the State of the Union I have 2 more speaking engagements this week or next week and the week after at various venues in the city about what's going on in Welland Park, in Legacy Northport, with regard to the referendums. I do believe that it's important that there be engagement. Debbie did it as commissioner. She did it in her own town halls. I think it needs to be done in a bigger way, where it's really under the air. I mean, I'm an advocate for streaming it, for putting it up. I mean, nothing. I don't need to keep anybody out. If staff wants to be there to take questions or field them, I'm good with that. We got to be careful with other commissioners, obviously, because of sunshine. But I think, my plan is after the May election, I'm going to start, as long as I can get the times at the libraries, I'm going to start doing monthly town halls, and I haven't figured out the exact agenda, whether it's going to be pick a subject for each meeting, each month, and focus on that, or whether it's just wide open, anything and everything. But, it's like I'm willing to sit and talk with anybody about any subject in this city. There's so much information out there that isn't getting transmitted, not because people don't try, but because it's hard to get everybody's attention with all they got going on in their lives. And if people want to hear the city side and the commission side, my side, they can, and then we can discuss it. Doesn't mean we're ever going to always agree on every issue or subject, but at least people should get a comfort level that we care. We try every day to do the best for the most, knowing that every decision does not make everyone happy, but always trying to do better. That is our mantra, and it is the best we can do. And to build trust, people have to be willing to talk with you, get to know you, and get to understand where you're coming from. We in this city, we commissioners, we are like every other citizen in this city. We're you. Every decision we make affects us just like it affects everyone else. And I get the distrust people have with government, and I get the distrust people have with past administrations and this and that. Hey, you can't undo the past. You can have your opinions, but on a current basis, I think we try to be straightforward. We try to explain why we do the things we do. You don't have to agree in the end, but we've been elected to represent everybody and to try to do the best for the most, and we do. I mean, I believe in my heart we do. So I'm opening myself up to get out there and see people and be with them. I'm not doing it as the mayor. I'm doing it as Phil Stokes, commissioner, elected by the people. I want people to feel they can come at me and talk to me and debate me. I wished I could spend all my time on social media with them, but I just can't, because it's like herding cats. You start on point with a subject, but then if you debate it professionally and respectfully, it shifts, it deflects to another subject, and where people can attack. And so you really don't get anywhere, and people keep weighing in on subjects that don't have anything to do with the original comment or the original post. So all you end up doing is getting attacked, and it's very frustrating. I've tried long and hard to try to answer people's questions when I see misinformation on social media about the referendums. But inevitably, after that debate, it shifts to all kinds of other subjects in the city for which people are ready to attack. So, you say to yourself, like, how much good is it doing? But
well, we've got listeners out there right now, and all the listeners that are out there right now, please put a topic up. Let's get a discussion going. This is your opportunity. We've got a live town hall meeting with our mayor from the state of Northport. This is your opportunity to, if you just want to know about information of a topic that's happening, please just put it up there. If you have a comment, some kudos you want to send out to somebody, or the organization as a whole, as the city goes, put that up there, and let's get a conversation going. But do this for me. I want you to talk about the referendum as a whole, and kind of go down the referendum category by category. and explain what people are going to be voting on.
Okay. Well, the first statement would be that in November, the referendum that was on the ballot in November of this past year was to simply ask citizens for the right, for the city commission's right to borrow money in the event of declared emergencies, imminent infrastructure failure, and health and public safety related projects. That was a very broad borrowing mandate. Okay. It would have changed our charter to give commission borrowing authority in pretty much, their discretion. It had some borrowing caps on it. It tied into a debt management policy, which is still in place. But it was broad, and it failed by 300 votes. Over 50,000 people voted. It passed. It failed by 300 votes. The message we got was if you had only asked for emergency borrowing authority in the event of declared emergencies, everybody would have supported it. And if you want to borrow money for specific projects, ask us. Ask us, and we'll look at the merit of the project and approve your ability to borrow money to pay for it. So, not wanting to go through 2 more hurricane seasons before the 26th election, we felt it necessary to do a special election. And that's why May 13th, we got a special election. I mean, it would have been, in my opinion, irresponsible of commission to simply say, well, we'll wait till the next election. What if we get a bunch of storms this year or next year and we don't have the ability to recover? So that leads you to the first referendum item, the ability to borrow money in the event of declared emergencies in order to remove debris and repair or replace any serious infrastructure that has been damaged or destroyed by that disaster. It is a very narrow borrowing. It is limited in a sense, while it has no borrowing cap, for good reason. You don't know what the costs involved in cleanup might be, but it's limited in the sense that the borrowings would be obtained from state and federal short and or low and no interest loans that are floated after disasters. Some are forgivable, in fact, but those loans would be available to our community if we had this borrowing ability. Up until now, we would have to go to referendum to get permission. By the time we did that, the narrow window to file for these loans elapsed. There's no way we could hold an election in time to do it. If we are able to borrow these funds, they're short term, 2, 3, 4 years tops. They're in place as long as it takes to get reimbursed by FEMA or by insurance. And they're only for disaster relief and declared emergencies. These are federal and state guidelines that guide how disasters are declared. So we're not talking, oh, gee, one day we wake up and decide it's raining and we'll declare it an emergency. It doesn't work like that. So that's the first one. Second up is whether or not our attorney and our city clerk should live within the city limits. There's a lot of different opinions. Some people think that if you're going to work for the city and you're going to represent the city and you're a charter officer, you should live in the city. There's something to that. But at the same time, the job they do is statutory. They provide factual, legal, and statutory guidance to commission. They don't make decisions. Commission makes decisions. They provide information, facts, and guidance to the commission. And whether they live in the city, whether they live outside the city, regardless of where they live, their expertise that they provide as part of their job don't require them being in the city. And, you add to that the fact that in order to there's never been a city attorney or assistant city attorney that's been hired from the city itself. Everybody, those positions are hard to fill within certain municipalities.
You kind of have to have one in your city.
Right. And so, I get the other side of the argument, but, people say, well, you live in the city, you should pay the same taxes. Well, most of our attorneys who don't live in the city, okay, like they're paying more taxes. I mean, our existing acting city attorney pays more taxes where he lives now than he would pay if he lived in the city of Northport. So, you gotta kind of consider some of that in whether or not, you want to support or not support this particular one. The third one is for a solid waste transfer station. I'll leave police headquarters to last. And, the solid waste transfer station and the wastewater treatment plant, while neither have had every I dotted and T crossed as far as what the engineering and the designs would be, we know what these projects will cost pretty much on point because they've been looked at for a while and we've been there before. The solid waste treatment plant, has been in the works for years. Furthermore, what people haven't yet or don't seem to realize is both those asks, one for 14 million for the solid waste transfer station and 17 million for the wastewater treatment reclaim plant upgrade. Both of those are for the ability to issue bonds to pay for them in an amount not to exceed. The city cannot borrow more money than what the citizens will approve if they approve these. So if the solid waste transfer plant comes in over budget, we can't borrow more money to pay for it, which means when we go out to bid, the city needs to assure themselves that whoever bids is going to have a not to exceed agreement. You got to bring this in on budget. And if it's going to go over like Price did, you can't cover every eventuality. If there's a hurricane and like with Price, we had to, modify Price Boulevard because of the bridges that were washed out that required redesign, that created a cost that we didn't anticipate. But with these projects, that doesn't appear to be the case. Even if there's a degree of inflation, well, you know what? Then the project gets scaled back. The citizens, if they approve these, are only going to be approving 14 and 17. And the ordinances and the actual language in the referendum say not to exceed. So, I agree that every single I isn't dotted and T crossed. But if we don't get this borrowing request approved for these two, the next chance we get is November of 2026 at 10% increase a year for any project. You can add, $6 million? If it's 31 million between the two, 10% a year, 3 million, you're looking at over $6 million at a minimum of cost increase for these projects if we wait till 26. Why not get the approval, lock in the not to exceed borrowing amount, then as concurrently as we move forward doing all our due diligence and dotting every I and T. It makes sense if people think it through, I think. So we hope that these get approved. And more importantly is for 65 years, every project this city does, it has to save up the money for and pay for. And the problem is that it means past property owners and taxpayers and current are coughing up their money to pay for projects that people who move here in the future and businesses who move in here in the future are going to benefit from, but don't have to pay for. That's not fair to those of us who live here now. Why wouldn't we want to amortize that cost over 30 years and allow the people who have yet to come, but who will benefit from these assets, help to pay for them? It's just common sense. We have never had that opportunity to do something like that. So for that reason, I'm a strong supporter of these two, even without every single thing analyzed to the nth degree. Time is money. And I'm not saying we should act frivolously, but if we put the controls in place to not exceed our spending, then I don't see the problem. Final referendum item, the police headquarters.
Well, before you do that, add this in. How this was a question from Elaine Emmett. How many police officers are going to be trained to help with ICE agents in Northport, and who pays for that training?
Well,
so couple that with the police department.
Well, I'll answer that question first. Again, what I've seen, and I don't have this directly from the city staff, I actually picked it up off of an article that was done by, I don't remember who actually talked to, I guess, our police department, and somewhere in the 30 range, 30, 35, 37 officers who would be trained to work with ICE so that they would understand the protocols and the processes here. And as far as who pays for it, I mean, that training, I believe they would provide. I don't see how the city would be paying anything extra. I mean, I could be wrong, but it just seems to me if they come to train us, they're going to come to train us. I mean, I don't know what costs would be involved in there, but I wouldn't think the taxpayers should have to pay for that necessarily. And, other than that, we just got to obey the law. The one thing I've thought about a little with this, because, you get a lot of conflicting feelings, and, yes, you want to obey the law. Yes, you want everything to be done right, but you don't want to see people who shouldn't be incarcerated or dragged off. But our police department has such an incredible relationship with the community, and the community engagement and the relationship is so good in Northport that if I were going to have anybody have to try to police this issue and be involved in this issue, I would sure want it to be our guys.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, and that's about the only comment I got on this one. So,
well, and I'll throw something in, is that I don't know that our city is the only one targeted for this. I think every city, every county, the sheriff is probably involved in this whole same training that they have to go through, because this is a countrywide problem. This isn't a citywide problem.
And by the way, when I say our guys, I mean our guys and our gals. Excuse me, it was a figure of speech. I didn't want to slight anybody out there, but it is what it is. We got to deal with it, and we always follow the law, and we try to make it work the best we can, and certainly our police force is capable of the humanity and the sensitivity that's involved in policing, and I feel like this issue will be in decent hands. So we'll see. As far as
on to the referendum.
Back to the referendum. The reality is that in 2006, when the existing police headquarters was occupied, it was virtually overgrown at that time. Nobody expected the growth. And, commission does not want to make the same mistake, or not the same mistake, but the miscalculation as to the impact of growth. And we don't make these decisions in a void. This police headquarters, the need for it and the scope, or the size, was arrived at through two separate independent consulting studies, one done in 2017-18, the other done in 2023, by companies who are experts in this field. This is what they do. They determine need and scope of projects like this. They don't do the projects, so they don't have a vested interest. They're not making money if we spend what they think we should spend or build it to the size that they think we should build it to. Both studies came back indicating that building a new headquarters on a new site was the most cost-effective and efficient way to do it. Building off the existing building would have necessitated bringing the entire existing facility up to code, which when they priced it out, was more money than building it in a separate location. Couple that with the fact that building it somewhere else would free up the existing building to be occupied by other departments who are really strapped for space as well with our growth. And it would save us millions by not having those departments need to add more space or rent more space or build more space. So this was an efficient way to do it. People who say, why don't you decentralize police? You got police stations spread around the city. Why can't you do it that way and not build a Taj Mahal? Well, first of all, it's not a Taj Mahal. You want to be proud of the headquarters you build. You don't want it to be, a solid brick building with no windows and no landscape and ugly as can be. So we should be proud of it as a city. And it should be efficient and streamlined. And studies show that the redundancy involved in decentralization is just not cost effective enough. And there's so many support services that help bolster the officer in the vehicle out there on the street that it just doesn't make sense to decentralize. And the studies show it and prove it. This isn't our police force saying it. It isn't the commissioner saying it or the city manager saying it. This is what the studies show. This is why we take this out to experts to look at these things.
Let me go at something here for a second with you, because of what you just said and how you said it. While we send this out for an outside source to review, there's still internal needs that are documented and why we bring in the outside source, isn't there? We just don't count on throwing it out to the outside source. We have great leadership who are really identifying the
Right.
need.
Well, there's no doubt, but throughout our departments, let's face it, every year, every department budgets what they need and what they want, and commission reviews that and makes decisions. But just like we do with our rate structures, with our enterprise and district funding and pricing, our fire rescue, independent consultants are necessary. We're talking about dealing with taxpayer dollars here, and there should be independent determinations as to what the best use of those dollars are, what the right fees are, how you comply to make sure you're complying with the rules and the laws and all the rest. It's a collaboration between your outside consulting professionals and the staff that identify the need to begin with, and then the commission that has to bless it and approve it. So, it's none of those parties work in a vacuum. We all work together, but it's important people understand that the decision on this police headquarters, okay, to build this building and the scope of this building is determined by some methodology here. And people can say, well, I don't want it, or I don't like it, or I just simply don't think $115 million is worth it. And I would say people are entitled to their opinions. And if that's the case, fine, they won't vote for it. But the alternative is that commissions already approved it. Okay? The ask is not, should we build it, or is this the right size? We commission depended on the consultants, the experts, to make a decision that this was the right thing to do. The ask in this referendum is issuing bonds the most cost-effective way to pay for this building? And I don't know any other way to do it cheaper. We could have someone else build it and lease it to us with an option to buy. One, we wouldn't get the building we would like to get because we wouldn't control the creation of it. Two, we would pay a lot more since whoever leases it to us is going to want to make a fat profit off of us. And then we have to buy it out at the end. So I don't advocate for that particularly. You can do some other types of financing mechanisms, okay, which, may cost incrementally more than bonds. But this ask is for the most cost-effective way. If people just don't agree, then they don't agree.
So we actually have somebody, Rich Stokes, who is actually saying, make sure you vote no. Rich, I'm going to ask you to respond here real quick. Are you talking about the police headquarters, question mark. Please respond to that. And then he also said, commissions approved price a decade or more ago. So until they found funding acceptable to the citizens, it didn't happen. Did you read that good enough?
Did I?
Yeah. He
Yeah,
said commissions approved price a decade or more ago. So until they found funding acceptable to the citizens, it didn't happen.
Yep. I mean, that's certainly a truism.
And so he said to make sure the voters voted no, I believe, on the police headquarters. Do you have anything to counter that with?
Well, again, since the decision's been made to build it, because one, certainly in not just this present commission, but in the past commission prior to the last election, unanimously, every single commissioner believed in the need and the scope. So that being said, the only question is, are the citizens willing to support issuing bonds to pay for it, which is the most cost-effective way? If not, then we'll have to do it a way in which it isn't as cost-effective. I don't see why anybody would want us to pay more for something than we have to. It's our taxpayer dollars. Why wouldn't we want to do it the cheapest way? And if somebody says, well, you shouldn't do it at all, well, I take issue, because it is our job as commissioners, it is staff's job, and it is our consultant's job to determine what the city needs. I am not about to say, we don't need a new police headquarters, and then find that our quality of policing drops to the point where we're impacted. And, people can argue, you don't need a building to police your city. That's not true. 104 square miles, and there's way more to policing than just a cop in a vehicle. And anyone who doesn't understand that should take the time to go meet with our police headquarters people and our captains and our chiefs and talk to them and understand what goes involved in trying to keep our city safe with 100,000 people in 104 square miles. And, I've heard this over and over from people. You don't need this. You don't need this. Well, yeah, when crime doubles, when it's a horror show out there, people will be saying, why didn't our leadership and city government do anything about this? We worked very hard over the last 15 to 20 years as a city to make it as safe a place as it is today. And it's one of the safest places in Florida. Now, for people who don't like government and don't like police, well, okay, you're entitled to your opinion. But as long as I'm a commissioner and the last two commissions unanimously felt the same way, public safety is the most important thing we provide our citizens. And we're going to do what we feel we got to do to keep everyone safe.
So I'm gonna kind of go back at Rich here for a second, because didn't he just qualify that statement because of how Price was handled?
Say
Because
that again.
we kicked the can down the road and we didn't get it done earlier.
Oh,
and now people are upset because we didn't do it.
Well, there's that too. I mean, that should be obvious enough. Price Boulevard widening will live in infamy in the city of Northport as an example of what government should never do. Okay? It should stand, there should be a big sign up. This is not how it should have been done. You don't take a $5 million project and turn it into 80 million because you can't figure it out. You figure it out. You figure it out, and you have the backbone as leadership to speak out and tell people what they need to hear, not always what they want to hear. What's it going to take to do what has to get done? Everybody knew Price needed widening, and it went on and on and on and on because it wasn't that nobody knew that there was a way to get it done. Nobody had the you-know-whats to get it done. And even Argus and people like that who argued against putting the widening on the referendum in 22 because the surtax renewal was on it, and they said if you put that on, it's going to fail. But at least commission had the guts back then to say, no, we're going to do it. It's time to bite the bullet. and they put it on, and they both passed resoundingly. It just shows you time is money. When you push things down the road, the need does not go away. The need just grows. And that's been the problem in Northport for 65 years. The reason we have billions of dollars worth of goddamn infrastructure that hasn't been improved and fixed is because nobody figured out to get it done was going to require money. And that required stepping up and making hard decisions. And, you know, people can fault us for that. But the option is to just kick the can down the road and let future commissions, long after I'm popping up daisies, it'll be their problem. Well, that isn't why I signed on. And I didn't sign on to be loved either. I signed on to try to do the best I could for this city so that this city could grow along with its population in a responsible way. And I think my four fellow commissioners and the past commission I sat with feel the same bloody way. And it's hard to make these decisions when people want things to be the way they were in the old days. They're not going to be the way they were in the old days. Times change. Things change. Population grows. And if you don't grow with it and do it responsibly, then the repercussions can be, you know, terrible. And so we do the best we can. And it is what it is. Someone give me a better solution. Snap our fingers and the need for a police building go away. Walk away from what's going to be a $15 million savings in solid waste. If we build this within 5 years, 13 million of estimated profits or cost savings by building this solid waste transfer station. Wastewater treatment plant, Department of Environmental Protection has said with the amount of wastewater we process at that old plant, we have had 2 spills which were contained within our property appropriately, but we do not have a deep enough well, and we do not have the piping that's necessary to manage the wastewater flow that's running through that plant when it rains and we have tough weather. So consequently, we're given an order. We have to fix this. $1,000 a day the fees could come to, the fines could come to. We have no choice. We have to fix this.
So correct this a little bit for listeners that may not be aware. Where does that order that you just spoke of, where is that coming from?
Department of Environmental Protection to the city. You got to fix it. You got a problem here, fix it. And they understand it takes a degree of time. They understand that in our particular unique case, we don't even have the ability to go borrow the bloody money for it until we ask permission from our citizens. That's why we're asking. We need to issue bonds to go out and fix this and drill a deep well and add the 30-inch piping we need to move this water so we can make sure we don't pollute the Myakkahatchee and any other areas in and around this plant. I mean, you know, these are not like on a whim, oh, gee, let's do this project. All these things have thought that go into them. There's reasons. You know, why would we want to just keep spending people's money for no bloody reason at all? Because if we do that, we're spending my money too. Why would I want to do that? And it's just astounding to me that people don't want to actually think about sometimes what it is we're trying to do with some of these asks. So again, these are asks to not if we're going to do them or not do them, because we're doing them. This is all about, is this issuing bonds the most cost-effective way to pay for them?
So I got another question from Trisha, and thank you for your question. Why wasn't a satellite police station planned for all 4 corners of the city instead of the building just one brand new building?
Well, I touched on it a little earlier, Trish. You know, studies show that policing is, as I said, more than just a police officer in a vehicle. All the support services that go along with policing, many of them, if they have to be placed in multiple locations in order to properly service the police, the redundancy is very cost ineffective. Centralizing headquarters, especially with the high-tech policing that our city is at the cutting edge of. Centralization makes sense. We have 104 square miles to police, and we can't be everywhere. We have to have the ability to process things, everything from administration to evidence gathering to you name it. I mean, there's a whole plethora of support services that go into making policing efficient and make it successful. And decentralization, all the experts say, is just not the best way to do it. It's much more not only efficient and effective, but it's also more cost effective to centralize it. That's why.
And let me add something in because of the relationship and the shows that I do the second Monday of the month with the Northport Police Department. So that building and future builds out and the way things are going to happen within the police force. There's technology coming with the drone supports. I just did an interview with the drones. We have 4 drones. We have to manage 104 square miles. That particular product is actually going to expand within our police department. So flights in and out, different things that different pilots, the way they're going to handle these things, they're going to, in the future, they're going to make a huge impact on our city.
And you got things,
So that's just another futuristic kind of talk.
You got cyber crime, you got surveillance over the city, you've got all kinds of policing that take place, not on the street, but behind the scenes in order to be more effective so we can direct our resources in a more smart manner. And anyone who wants to know, I mean, this isn't some secretive kind of thing. Anyone who questions the need for this police headquarters, make a phone call, go over there. They will take you on a tour. They will give you, a briefing on why this is so important. I don't know anyone who's done that hasn't walked away saying, I support this police headquarters. This is the right thing. I can't believe you guys haven't done this long before today. So, by all means, if you're a skeptic, go learn about it. Don't listen to Phil Stokes. Don't listen to what you read, or don't swallow what you read on the city's webpage. Go figure it out yourself. Go investigate it. You can make a phone call and set up an appointment and go see. Because I'll tell you, you walk away like we did, going, how in the world are we operating with these kinds of constraints? So, you can beat this to death, but bottom line is, those that take the time to think this through and see it, I find it hard to think they're not going to want to support it. I mean, safety is so paramount in our city. We take it for granted. Do you know, since I got on this commission, every year when we do planning and we take polls and surveys of the city, right? And people say, we ask, what's your highest priority? And they go, infrastructure. Well, yeah, damn right it is. But amazingly, public safety, which traditionally has always been the top priority in a city, is second fiddle to infrastructure because we have such a safe city. I would not want to see that become the highest priority again, because that would mean we're not doing as good a job as we're doing now.
So I've got multiple posts by Rich Suggs. The first one's going to take the major part of the screen up here. So if you can you read that okay, from how you're viewing? So he's trying to figure out here the costs. 80% of the city budget is from employees.
Well, okay.
But I want to couple this in here real quick with you, because he also said, in conjunction with that, then let's just ban the Northport Police Department and get the county involved as a solution.
Well, I think I'll answer the second first. I think, the county does a great job, and Sheriff Hoffman and his organization, I think, is top notch. And I happen to think that the Northport Police Department is second to none anywhere I've ever been or ever lived anywhere. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. My take is we couldn't ask for a better team of professionals and a team that has involved themselves in this community, created so much value to our city, who have created such community outreach and assistance. I don't think anywhere I've ever been, and I would defy anybody to show me a venue where citizens love their police as much as they do here in this city of Northport. And yeah, there are hiccups, and yeah, there's a bad apple here and there, and there's an issue here and there. But by and large, this city of Northport has the greatest police department I've ever seen. And I'll put it up against anybody. To disband that and rely on the county, which has its own set of challenges in covering. We all know South County has always been a challenge for Sarasota County government to handle. That's why you saw the annexation of Welland Park. That's why you're going to see more growth in South County, because this is where it's happening. And for Venice and us and Englewood and other municipalities within the county down here, we have to grow and we have to expand and we have to be able to fend for ourselves, because it's hard for the county to handle everything. And I, for one, while certainly, like, I wouldn't knock in any way, shape, or form the sheriff's department, I think that we have shown our ability to run our city and police our city and keep it safe. I wouldn't want to trade that, not at all. And as far as the other, comment that Rich put up there, first of all, this state, as he well knows, is a property rights state. The city doesn't own all this land everywhere and doesn't have the ability to decide if it gets built on or if it doesn't. And as far as single family houses, damn right, for every single family quarter acre plot that's built on, the cost of services are probably exceed the revenue that comes in. That's why you see so many planned and gated communities, because building more higher density type developments and mixed diversity of housing types, one, most, if not all, of these larger communities are funded infrastructure wise by the developer, like Welland Park. You have the water plants, the safety building, all built at the developer's dollar, transferred to the city to be paid back by impact fees over the years. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And what it does is it enables the city to cope with growth on someone else's dollar. And the truth is that we need that diversity. Without that diversity, we can't help balance the tax base. Furthermore, if you can't create a density of residential in this community, we'll never attract the kind of commercial and industrial, light industrial growth we're looking for. Less than 10% of our revenues come from non-residential means. Without the ability to attract commercial and light industrial growth, we'll never get to the 20 to 30% that's necessary to sustain the city. And make no mistake, those kinds of investments, those kind of investors, the commercial and light industrial people, they're not interested in anything other than making their money like anyone else in business. They're coming here because they see the population base, they see the consumer base, they see the labor base. And so when you plan the growth, it's got to be smart growth. You can't stop people from moving here. So you try to see to it that they move into places that are affordable as much as possible, with a diversity of housing types, creating the densities in the right areas to attract the kind of support you need. And that's what we try to do. It's not a carte blanche, let everyone go and everyone can build wherever they want. The truth is, property owners have rights, and they are allowed to build certain things. So you try to incentivize to build the things we need. Star Farms or Toledo Village, that back in the early 2000s was going to be 3,600 single family homes. And then the recession hit and that project went fallow. Came back the first year I was on commission, And it was brought before commission for 3,600 single family homes. And commission said, are you out of your mind? We don't need 3,600 more single family homes. They went back, redesigned that project, and came back with a diversified housing group of starter homes, condos, townhomes, singles. If and when that project finally gets done, it's going to complement our city.
So I got another question from Suggy Fresh over here. I know he's going to love that nickname, but have you ever asked what the department heads spend the largest portion of their year budgeting? Why are you spending so much time budgeting? Why not do a 3-year budget?
Well, actually, we start when Jerome got here 3.5 years ago. I mean, we put in place what we call performance-based budgeting, which created a set of pillars under which, and a set of pillars, things like infrastructure, things like public safety, things like good governance, things like economic development. And under these pillars are rankings of priorities that are ranked through the input of community, staff, and commission. Every year we do strategic planning to refine those priorities. When we budget, what we try to do is steer the dollars that we have available in the budget to meet the highest priorities under each of those pillars, so that we're not spending a disproportionate amount of money or money on priority that might be low ranking. And it helps us refine where the money goes. We spend a lot of the year budgeting because it is a monumental task, and it requires a process between public meetings, between workshops where proposals come back and forth. We have capital improvement aspects to the departmental budgets. We have staffing requirements. We have contract negotiations that go on from year to year sometimes. All these factors play in. I mean, to spend 3-4 months, even 5 months a year in the process, it's not that it's at the expense of doing everything else that our department people do, but this is part of a process that takes time to do and to do right. And it takes a lot of input. It takes a lot of thought. It starts with direction staff gets from commission. We sit here, and we're sitting here this year. What do we want to do? Well, one, we don't want to raise the millage rate. That we know. Do we want to lower it? Okay. Do we want to cut the budget?
Stop there real quick, because not that I don't want you to continue, but we've got about 2 minutes left, which we've blown through 57 minutes this fast. But you just said something that I want you to stick on for 1 second, because not that I'm a rah-rah guy. I do love my city and I respect it, but you just talked about the millage rate. Mm-hmm. Haven't we proven as leadership over the last 5 years that we've maintained our millage rate?
Hey, we've done good. 5 years running with all the growth, and we've held the millage rate. And I'll add the caveat. Don't forget that we've been fortunate as a city, not necessarily as property owner, that property values have gone up. And the county, not the city, the county appraises properties every year. And the city, as other cities in the area have, enjoyed a healthy appreciation, which has generated more revenue for the city and has cost the taxpayers more money in their tax bill. But we've managed, in spite of that, to keep our millage rate flat. I mean, otherwise, all of us are getting double whacked. Not only are we getting more, we're having to pay more taxes because our properties go up, but we're raising our millage rate, and nobody wants that. At least with an appreciation, you can say, well, I'm building some equity in my property. I mean, that is, small compensation for those people on fixed incomes who, see their property value go up, but at the same time, write a bigger check to the IRS. I get that. But, we've kept that millage rate flat, to get back to your point, and we've done a good job in spite of the need to keep up with growth. And people say growth should pay for growth, and it should, but there's always a lag. There's always a lag between the investment you make in preparing for growth And when the money starts to roll in, and the financial studies we've had completed this year show that over the next 5+ years, we start to see some healthy appreciations in revenue, especially when you couple it with the ULDC rewrite, which will help promote the non-residential growth we're looking for. So,
all right, we're going to go over by a little bit, but let me put one more question up. Mr. Chuck over here, Mr. Chuck English, Mayor, could you give your perspective as it?
yeah, yes, I can.
Go
You know, I loved it. I thought it interesting that Argus, who has gone out of their way, in my opinion, to not support Northport and its referendums, went to Tax Watch and asked them to do a study. And guess what? The two referendum items that they supported, that they thought were good things to do, was the emergency borrowing and the police headquarters. They had some qualifications on the transfer station and on the wastewater treatment plant, because they said not all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. As I've addressed earlier, with a not to exceed number for this borrowing request, we do a lot to make sure that these don't run over budget. And, you know, so I thought that, quite frankly, that report was a endorsement of the direction the city is moving. And I thought it was fairly done. And I thought it was interesting that, in my opinion, Argus, whose executive director has gone out of her way to criticize this referendum and the referendum items, okay? And she's entitled to have her opinion, okay? But she doesn't live here. She doesn't own property here. She says she represents some businesses that do business here. But quite frankly, you know, I felt that this was a vindication of her indictment. And I know that's kind of harsh to say, but the truth is that she never read those two studies. She never visited the police headquarters. She never reached out to city staff or did her due diligence. She simply formed opinions. And that is the single biggest problem we face as a city, is people who are very, very easily moved towards what they hear and what they read without questioning, without asking the deeper questions, without using their own good common sense and intelligence to figure it out, to probe, to ask the questions, to challenge. I'm all for that. I'll go toe to toe and I'll answer. And when we're done, you still may not agree with me, because you are entitled, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But at least I feel that person will have had the benefit of looking at all the perspectives and making then the best decision based on the information they accumulated. But when people don't do that diligence, I take some issue with it. And for a supposedly governmental watchdog organization like Argus, who's responsible for doing that kind of thing, I take some umbrage. Okay, I really do. And I'm sorry that I speak out that way. I mean, no personal attack on anybody, but I thought that to simply reject something without having really dug into it and determined the need and all that was involved, I just didn't think that was right. So I'm delighted that Tax Watch came out and said the things they did. And I think people should feel real good about supporting emergency borrowing and the police headquarters. The other two, you got to look at. Let's face it, we got to do a wastewater treatment plant upgrade. The Department of Environmental Protection ordered it. It would be nuts not to have a $13 million savings over 5 years by not doing the solid waste. Everyone supports it. Just some people have some concerns that we didn't take our time to do all the due diligence. Well, we're only asking for permission to borrow. We're not going to issue those bonds tomorrow till we get all the other ducks in a row. But I sure don't want to wait 2 years to start this process all over at a $6 million increase to the cost of these projects.
So the other thing I'll say is, I hope that Commissioner Duvall is watching, because he is my guest on Monday. So I hope you all come
Hey.
back and have your questions ready for Commissioner
And you
Duvall.
know, John, when I got on today,
David's going to be ready. I promise.
when I got on today, I was hoping that what we could talk about was the conservation easement on Warren Mineral Springs, which at the end of the month is coming before us. We're going to see an update on the conservation easement from Gulf Coast and John Thaxton and his group, and it will be a great engagement, which I urge all the citizens to come out to play a part in. We're trying to do it as maybe a town hall, so in a way, in a fashion that allows community input, because what's real important is that conservation easement, once it's done, it'll inhibit the ability to do anything that hasn't been pre-planned. So for all the ideas that come from the 2019 plan to all the other ideas that have been proffered by people, we need to make sure all those considerations are in fact considered before a conservation easement is put in place, because land is actually carved out for this stuff. And once you ink it, you're locked into it. And we want to make sure that we're able to really meet the will of the people here and make this 60 acres something that everybody's going to be proud of, that isn't going to be a big money pit, and at the same time is going to meet the needs of creating this wellness, this holistic, this park-like environment that our citizens have, for years beat the drum on. So come out. It's the end of the month. I don't have the exact date, but it'll be on the agenda. And it'll be a presentation by Gulf Coast on the status of where we stand on that conservation easement. So it's a great time for everybody to provide some input.
Awesome. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. As always, your energy's way up there. So I hope that Dimitri and David and Pete and all of them and Barbara, I hope everybody's watching.
Hey, and I gotta say, Sudsy, thanks, man, because you bring up good questions, you ask good questions, you definitely stand up to government and want accountability. So I love it. I wish there was 50 of you, 1,000 of you, because that's what it takes for people to really learn. So thank you for taking your time to listen to me and, share your thoughts.
Awesome. Well, Monday, Commissioner David Duvall. I hope your game is on, brother, because it's going to be intense. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I look forward to that. So 3:00, 3:05 on Monday. We'll see you then. But thanks, Mayor. I appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for everybody who took the time to listen.
All right, brother. Please share and like this live stream, and you all have a great night and a great weekend. Talk to you.
Bye.